work. All I do is work. Work.
Yeah, what's up? Happy Thanksgiving. It's gonna be a quick stream because I have to go do family stuff, Thanksgiving and everything. But I was gonna stream for like an hour. So yeah. Hopefully I'll actually win a game today. Been on a giant losing streak lately. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I used to have Joe Rogan on all the time. Joe is angry with me. He has a problem with me, and I know why.
Why exactly do Howard Stern and Joe Rogan hate each other? It's a feud that's lasted over 20 years and includes multiple different reasons, only made crazier by the fact that they used to be pretty good friends. This could be seen during Joe's very first appearance on Howard Stern, where in September 2000, Howard began
I finally
crazy
am able
one of
to
Joe's
play
comedy segments.
ranked
One of
on
the
here
best
now.
bits we've played on the radio in a long
So I don't
time.
know, this is
a
my
bit
first time
by
playing
Joe
ranked.
Rogan, who stopped by today, and I want to play it for you right now. Here's Joe Rogan's bit.
After playing the lengthy segment, Howard and Joe talked about how much they liked each other.
A great bit, a great comedian, Joe Rogan. Good to meet you, Joe. Finally have you on the show.
What's happening, man?
How you doing?
This is an honor.
I didn't know that
yeah.
they didn't even
It's
like
an
each
honor to
other.
meet you.
After which Joe Rogan became a regular guest on the show until the first incident of February 2002. Howard and Joe's friendship had strengthened in the 18 months prior, so much that they'd spent time together outside of the show. On the 6th of February 2002, the pair flew to Vegas where they'd end their evening at a strip intoxication. Joe made some jokes/comments about the girls there, done so in a private setting between friends. Although when they'd record a Stern Show episode the very next day, Howard tried to publicly call Joe a misogynist by airing his comments from the night before.
Then we went over to Club Paradise. Joe Rogan, you see, you try to act like you're above the strip club.
Oh, come on. How am I trying to act like I'm above it?
You can see this
How
guy's
am I
nose.
trying to act like I'm above it?
Well, I mean, you're like, oh, these girls, they don't
What?
like me.
What are you talking about?
Yeah?
No such thing.
He goes, oh, these whores, this and the other. Meanwhile, you love these
I
girls.
don't say it that way. You know how it's affectionately.
I think you're angry with women.
This was obviously a bit embarrassing, but Joe didn't seem all that concerned. It was the early 2000s and controversial moments were an expectation on Howard Stern's show. Only as time progressed, Howard refused to let the moment die and would push the same narrative in a later episode when Joe wasn't there.
Joe hates women. Yeah, Joe's weird. Like
He
I go
definitely
to,
has a difficult time.
I've gone to strip clubs with him, and he's like, "Get away from me, you whore."
In the meantime, Howard tried to
Based?
manufacture even more embarrassment by
Based?
inviting a girl.
Bro. Howard Stern was talking about how he went to the strip club with Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan was just like, "Get out of here, whore." Based,
Joe had been
bro.
within the past to sabotage his reputation further.
He was my first one-night stand.
You're kidding.
It wasn't really a one-night stand. It was like a trailer.
By the way, you were Joe's 350th one night stand.
That's fine. I learned a lot.
Where
from
did you
Joe.
meet Joe?
You learned a lot from me?
Yeah.
Sweet.
So
What did you
after
learn
that-
from Joe?
Well, after that wonderful one-night stand, I got pregnant, and I.
What?
Yeah.
What? What?
Joe, you knocked her up.
Are you kidding?
Did you know
No,
that?
okay, but see, the other-
How old's your son?
I never kept it.
Thank you, Jesus.
What the fuck?
Thank you, Jesus.
This is pretty
Joe played
fucked
the
up.
awkward moment off like it was no big deal. However, this was much harder after Howard then invited Joe's actual ex-girlfriend onto the show.
But how did he hurt you? Did he cheat on you?
He did.
Joe, what is your problem?
Did you think you had an exclusive relationship with him at the time when he cheated?
is on the radio for the world.
I did.
You did.
Joe. You're going hard on me, bro.
Joe, let me ask you. I mean,
Hey, enough.
why cheat on her? Why not be honest?
You know what? We used to have huge fights, and then I would.
Yeah, but why the cheating?
And having grown tired of being embarrassed publicly, Joe's appearances on The Stern Show became less frequent than non-existent. Noticing the pair's potential fallout, fans took to the Joe Rogan official forums where they'd bring up the original strip club incident before they'd receive clarity from none other than Joe Rogan himself. He'd write, "My problem with Howard's version of the story is that it's complete crap. I never said getaway whores to anyone. There are a lot of aggressive strippers that were trying to get guys to buy lap dances. Howard and some of the other guys were getting them and I didn't want one. The girls were pushy and all I kept saying is no thanks. Somehow that turned into getaway whores when he got on the radio. When you've got a guy that you respect and admire and you've done his show a bunch of times, you think that you're friends. Then when that guy turns on you and talks badly about you, especially when it's not true, it's a gross feeling. I'm a loyal friend and that stuff means a lot to me. If I had a friend outside of show business and he gave a distorted account of me like that, I would stop hanging around him and I wouldn't trust him anymore. As for Howard, I have no ill feelings. I still listen to Stern all the time. I was always a huge fan of the show. I'll probably do Stern again sometime. I just thought that whole situation was really weak and I didn't want to be a part of it." Having confirmed that the two were in fact fighting, Joe was asked about the feud in various radio appearances.
The alleged feud with Howard Stern and Joe Rogan here. Howard has nothing but good things to say, and he was always wondering why you don't do his show anymore.
At which point he'd elaborate further.
Howard said, you know, Joe hates women, and I listened to that and I was like, that's not true. Like, and I was like, you know, what do I do? Do I go on and defend myself? And then you get into that weird cycle of, you know, like accusing and defending, and like, I don't like negativity. I don't like conflict. You know, there's like a whole gotcha mentality over there.
No, that's very true.
However, Joe discussing their feud only added fuel to the fire, as Howard then took to his own show to offer his side of the argument.
Speaking of feuds, Joe hasn't appeared on our show, Joe the comedian. So I told you Joe had some problem with me, so he discussed it with Craig Fitzsimmons.
He won't discuss it with us.
No, and you know, I remember the exact incident and everything, and I knew this is what it was.
Vegas?
Yeah, this is Joe's, you know, this is what Joe said.
He said something about me on the air that I didn't like. He said I hate women, and I was like, come on, man, really? First of all, I'm gonna have to defend that. So then, you know, whenever you're defending something like that, it always automatically looks like you're being defensive.
Yeah.
I don't even want to be involved. And I said, I'll just be a fan again.
And Joe's right. You know, it's better he doesn't come on because he's building this thing up. I understand what he's saying, because if you start dealing with it on the air, then it becomes even bigger.
To me, let it go. You know, come back in and let's have fun again.
Yeah.
You know,
I like it better this way.
Whatever.
You know what I mean?
It was clear that Joe and Howard weren't exactly best buddies, although to make matters worse, all of this went down 6 months before Joe had even started his podcast, which only damaged their relationship further. In March 2015, Howard made the claim that podcasts are for losers.
This is Immortals of Avium, a single-player first-person magic shooter where you unleash an arsenal of magic spells in fast-paced combat that defies FPS conventions.
So you think you know Wix, but do you really? First up, we've got Shake.
prompting Joe's friend Ari Shaffir to bring up the topic on episode 623.
You're upset with Howard Stern because he said that shit about podcasting.
That's the new thing I'm upset with Howard Stern over. It just shows how much he's lost touch. Like, that's not the way you become a radio DJ. Stern, no one wants to become a radio DJ who's doing podcasts. That's not our end goal. Anyone who listens to a podcast and listens to Howard Stern, just so you know, Howard Stern called you a loser for listening to podcasts as well.
This gave Howard Stern the chance to respond.
I got tape from Joe Rogan's podcast. He had a comedian on there who was bashing me the other night. He's a 41-year-old comedian I've never heard of, nor has anyone else. Dicking around with some podcast, and he's hurt that I said that podcasts are no good. And if you sit in your room and do a podcast, you're pretending to be a broadcaster. Take the podcast and throw it out the window. You're 41 and you're on Joe's podcast and no one knows who you are and no one's going to hear you. This guy, it's like a street performer giving advice to Paul McCartney. Howard's old. He doesn't understand podcasting. No, I understand it perfectly. He goes, and by the way, everyone who has a podcast, Howard Stern's calling you a loser. Yeah, I stand by that. It's exactly what I'm doing.
However, despite Ari getting absolutely destroyed, it was obvious that Joe was trying to avoid drama.
Stern has really good interviews. They're really good.
Still, new ones?
Very good. He might have some ideas that I don't agree with, like the podcasters are losers, but like that guy's the #1 radio guy of all time.
Which was in turn appreciated by Howard.
Joe was nice. He was like, saying, hey, Howard's a great broadcaster. Why don't you listen to what he's saying? Joe was like, are you for real?
In a 2019 article titled Howard Stern Says He Has Changed How Much, Stern was asked, do you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast? To which he'd respond by stating, I'm a fan of Joe Rogan. I've never watched the entire podcast, but there's tons of clips of him, and he does a really good job, showing that perhaps they'd resurrected their friendship. Although the very next question was, is there an issue between you guys? To which Howard stated, yeah, there is. I was a fan of Joe's comedy. I was a big proponent of his before he was a host on TV, before he got into MMA fighting or whatever. Joe was a guest one time and I said something to him off air, which I won't go into, but he took offense. I haven't heard or seen him since. I think he made the decision that I was toxic for him, but I hold no grudge, showing that there might have been another private incident between them, as was also suggested by this clip.
I said something to him in private and he was insulted by what I said. I don't even know if he has dislike or something from me. I don't know, but no, I won't be having him on, but that's not my idea, that's his.
Despite this, the interviewer then asked Howard, has he invited you on his show? To which he'd state, he hasn't, I'm not opposed to it. I've asked him to come on my show, but he doesn't want to, and I respect that, it's not meant to be, which only became more ingrained in the very next year of 2020. Joe began the year by once again praising Howard Stern.
Whatever anybody wants to say about Howard Stern, he opened the door for podcasts, for sure. All these outrageous people doing podcasts, he made the roadmap.
However, as the pandemic made everything about politics, it became apparent that Howard and Joe held completely different opinions. While Howard Stern was vigorously pro-vaccine, Joe made it clear that he'd rather use alternate medicine, leading Howard to resuscitate their very public feud.
Like I heard Joe Rogan was saying, he says, what are you busting my balls?
I've got COVID, yeah,
he goes,
I'm taking a horse dewormer, yeah.
And a doctor gave it to me. Well, a doctor would also give you a vaccine, so why take horse dewormer?
Joe provided no response to Howard's comments, and instead continued to host the podcast as he'd done so previously. Showing no interest in changing his stance, Joe was then pressured by the public to alter his behavior or explain his actions, eventually leading to this video.
I'm just a person who sits down and talks to people and has conversations with them. Do I get things wrong? Absolutely, I get things wrong.
Although it seemed Howard Stern wasn't satisfied with Joe Rogan's response. The whole thing with Joe Rogan is so silly to me, Stern told listeners on Tuesday. Even the apology, he just should have said, you know what, listen, I'm a comedian and I have no idea what I'm talking about. I have no medical background whatsoever to be telling people what to do with their health, Stern continued. He should issue an apology saying, I'm wrong and go and get the vaccine before you die. Although Joe maintained his refusal to argue and instead continued to praise what Howard had done for radio.
People to this day, they make fun of Howard Stern because of who he is now and the way he behaves now. That guy's the man. When he was the king of all media, and now he's woke. It's crazy.
Roughly 2 months later, Joe was once again asked the following.
What do you think of what Howard's become recently?
Well,
he's the only person I know who's gone, other than Penn maybe, who's gone from being red-pilled to blue-pilled.
Yeah.
Although the conversation went elsewhere before Joe would give an answer, prolonging the feud until the two media legends clash again in the future.
Now, the secret behind any great burger, of course, is in the colour, making sure you've got a nice, beautiful colour on that burger patty. Get that pan nice and warm. In we go. Again, season it. Salt and pepper. As that starts caramelizing. A little touch of butter in there just adds more and more flavor. Start off medium-high heat, turn it down, and use the remaining heat in that pan to continue cooking that burger beautifully. You can see that the actual pate is starting to caramelize. You only flip burgers once, okay? Have the confidence, use the pan, let the pan do the work, and get that beautiful color in there. I'm just gonna give that a little baste there. You can see what's happening. Up and over, look at that color. Touch more butter. And because I've got all that beautiful heat in the pan, look, I can get my onions in there and beautifully caramelize these onions. Season the other side, the burgers. Season the onions. Again, fresh cracked pepper. And now this whole thing's starting to come together. Turn over my onions. Beautiful. The flavor and the smell is incredible. We're literally cooking the burger 2 minutes each side. I like my burgers just under medium. Before I put my cheese on, I like to season the burger again. Cheese on. Season the cheese. And again, one more on top. And then from there, touch of fresh pepper. How do we melt that cheese properly? First of all, turn off the heat. Get your lid.
All right, guys.
To Argentina now, where supporters of the right-wing outsider...
I've seen this guy. He seems pretty funny.
In an election
the Argentinian,
between a corrupt establishment, generally reviled politician, and a lunatic anarcho-capitalist, the lunatic anarcho-capitalist has won.
Have been celebrating his victory in the presidential election. Mr. Milei, known as El Loco, or the Madman, pulled off a major upset. Provisional results show the self-styled anarcho-capitalist won with 55.7%.
By a massive majority, too. A 12-point lead in favor of Milei. Incredible.
...to the vote, compared to 44% for his rival. Economy Minister Sergio Massa of the governing Peronistas, who rapidly conceded defeat. Javier Milei has promised a new dawn.
I genuinely thought anarcho-capitalism was a joke ideology by political bros. It is. Anarcho-capitalism can't exist in real life. It is completely inapplicable. Anarcho-capitalists in practice are usually just fascists. The question is really, to what extent is he genuinely insane, and to what extent is he cleverly masquerading his fascist views behind a guise of anarcho-capitalist rhetoric? And in his case, there's a very high likelihood that he actually is just insane, which would probably make him less destructive than if he was maliciously dishonest.
For a country ravaged by debt and rocketing inflation, pledging to do away with the central bank and replace the peso with the US dollar. Donald Trump congratulated him on his victory, saying he will truly make Argentina great again. And Brazil's former President Bolsonaro said hope shines again in South America. Katie Watson reports.
For Argentina, this was a political earthquake. Javier Milei.
Argentina has a banger flag, I have to say. I like that baby blue with the like sun emoji, the creepy sun emoji. This is very good. This is very powerful.
Won by a wider than expected margin, and his victory sent a clear message. Argentinians wanted change.
Bad Empanada is in shambles right now. Bad Empanada is going to like take to the jungle and wage like a Maoist people's war against the Milei regime. You know, he's going to be like firebombing, you know, like post office.
Situation in Argentina is critical. The changes our country needs are drastic. There is no room for gradualism. There is no room for half measures.
Mr. Milei was a relative unknown until a few months ago, but his brash manner, including wielding a chainsaw at a campaign event, got him noticed. In a country where annual inflation is now over 140%.
The reason why he was wielding that chainsaw is because it's a big part of his campaign promise, that he's going to cut government spending. He's basically said, like, he's going to cut every single government program.
And 2 in 5 Argentinians now live in poverty, A drastic new approach to fixing economic problems was a clever move.
I think this time Argentina needed a change, and that's why I bet on this new proposal. We are doing really bad as a country, and I hope Milei does not disappoint us. With this current government, we have gone from bad to worse.
But the campaign was divisive, as his rival acknowledged when he conceded defeat.
I called him, convinced that the most important thing for us Argentinians tonight is to remember that working together, dialogue, and respect for peace rather than this violence is the best path we should take.
But it won't be easy for Milei. On Sunday, it was clear many are disappointed with politicians and their empty promises of change.
Yeah, so it should be understood that this is really like a lesser of two evils in the minds of many
I really want
Argentinian
one of these
voters.
people to
it's
fucking
not so much people being super excited for Milei. His opposition,
trade.
Sergio Massa,
Damn it.
from my
That means that
understanding, is basically just like disappointment congealed in a politician. Like just a privileged, powerful, sits in the chair, promises, doesn't do shit, blah de blah. You know, like just it's a desperation vote. People are lunging out and looking for anything. It's essentially like a more pronounced version of the 2016 election, where a lot of what happened was really down to people not caring about Hillary, more so that like Trump did not get an astonishing number of votes in 2016. Hillary just got fewer votes than anyone expected because nobody cared, you know. But I'm not exactly an expert on this guy. I looked over his Wikipedia page, and he just like the impression that I get from looking over what he has done is that every time he gets elected, people basically shrug and go, yeah, I guess this guy. And then he promises stuff, and then some stuff happens, and he's very corrupt, and not much gets done, and not much gets better, and that's just how it is. I'm sure there's a lot more complexity to it, but I think that disappointment and bitterness is what explains this. Like, this is essentially the result of a protest vote. So?
I'm a bit sad about the whole situation. I don't know how this will help us move the country forward. At least we are voting and exercising democracy, but I'm not happy with either candidate.
Yeah, 140% inflation. Like, holy shit, wait, hold on, let me see the chart. Argentina inflation chart. Jesus Christ. The top line here, this is 120%. That's what this line is. Inflation rate by month, Argentina 2023. You know how groceries have gone up like 50% in price? Imagine them tripling in price in the span of 1 year. Yeah, it's not good. Now, I'm not going to pretend I understand the exact, reasons why Argentina is experiencing a very high inflation rate. I would like to know. I'll get into it soon. But yeah, again, stuff like this tends to lead people to protest vote.
Mr. Milei has also pledged to loosen gun laws and ban abortion, and he and his vice president...
Again, there we go. Anarcho-capitalism at its finest. Freedom, freedom, freedom. No government intervention. Have guns, ban abortion. Yeah. Like I said, he's not actually an anarcho-capitalist. He's just
yes, there we go.
A hardcore. He's a fascist with a libertarian bent.
Ooh, no, don't.
Have
Please
repeatedly
don't.
been accused of
Please
lacking
don't take him
respect
out.
for democracy and calling into question the official number
I really
of
hope he gets
victims
fucked
during
right
the
here and
country's
can't take out
dictatorship.
this last.
All told, Milei's victory has been
Damn
a
it!
shock for Argentina's traditional...
Oh yeah, his supporters were also screaming fraud when they were counting the votes for the election the other day, even before they had finished. Like he did the Trump thing where he said like 3 million illegals voted, and then he ended up winning anyway, but then he insisted still that 3 million illegals voted. You know, he basically did that.
Political scene. Javier Milei said he'd deliver change for Argentina, but few understand what that will look like. One thing's clear, it'll be unlike anything that...
Oh gosh! Oh my gosh! Come on! Oh my gosh! Oh gosh! Put it out! Put it out! Put it out!
I mean, what a mess. What would you have done differently? Sure, a fire extinguisher does come in handy, except it would leave behind a huge mess to clean up. That is, if you remember all the steps to use one in the middle of all the chaos. Plus, 83% of Americans don't even know how to use them. But what even fewer people know, that there are better, cleaner, and faster ways to handle a fire. way more efficient and easier to use than a traditional extinguisher. Like this, the Prepared Hero Fire Blanket. Check it out in action. You just pull the tabs and throw it over the fire. It puts out most types of fires so smoothly, it's actually satisfying to watch. Grease fires, electrical fires, flammable liquids, wood fires, gas fires, anyone can put them out in an instant with the emergency fire blanket. The fire is put out immediately. Zero mess.
No.
Minimal
No,
cleanup.
you fucking cunt.
Plus, it never expires. You can pack it back in and reuse it anytime. Look, firefighters respond to an average of 358,000 emergency calls every...
That's come before. Katie Watson, BBC News.
Well, earlier I spoke to Mimi Swaby about Milei's victory.
Defying pollsters who predicted a really close result, Javier Milei has been the runaway victor with nearly 56% of the votes against his rival.
He defended Thatcher. And if you know the history between the UK and Argentina over the Falklands. Yeah. Weirdly, he has made the claim that Argentina has sovereignty over the Falklands, but has also defended Thatcher and called her like one of the most influential or important people or whatever in the in modern history. This is most explainable by the fact that he is a fascist, where he will admire authoritarian tendencies in other authoritarians, but he also has like a strong nationalist bent. Like, you know, again, anarcho-capitalism is not a real ideology. There are just some fascists who emphasize business freedoms as like the through line to their, to their political ends.
Sergio Massa, and this has really upheaved a political status quo which has long been dominated for decades now in Argentina by two main parties. Now, when Javier Milei first announced his entry into politics back in 2020, very few people thought he was serious. He suggested he would blow up the system. Yet 3 years later, this far-right libertarian radical figure,
He also boinked his sister, allegedly. He looks like his dad boinked his sister.
Far-right economist and former TV pundit, is now the next president of Argentina and will soon hold the keys to Casa Rosada on the 10th of December. This has been an election race with surprises, twists and turns, with this outside radical figure with a campaign full of influencers on social media. It's his combative and aggressive at times approach, which has been seen as a bit of a lightning rod for angry voters at this economic crisis, and that is what has really galvanized people towards him. It's also worth noting that without a party of their own in this really polarizing runoff election, the centre-right has formed a bit of an uneasy alliance with Milei, publicly backing him for this vote. And now that is thought to help have pushed him really far over this victory line in this shocking and huge win for him.
And he...
When have I seen that before?
He is promising an end to the
that was
soaring
no less
inflation
bueno.
and debt levels in Argentina. How does he propose to go about that?
Well, he says he's going to tackle this 143% inflation by ditching the Argentine peso, dollarizing the economy, and eliminating the central bank. He has some interesting proposals of...
All right, right off the bat, what's the opening proposal? What if we made our entire economy completely reliant on the U.S. dollar, hedged all of our stability to the United States?
Seeing the government size, which he says is his omnipresent kind of state, which has only caused people suffering throughout Argentina.
Can he even do
wants
that?
to get rid of the Ministry of Culture, Sport, and very
Damn it, bro.
And merge the health and...
I mean, personally, I think it would be better for the long term in their country to stabilize their economy. Keep in mind, they can dollarize, but they can't print U.S. dollars, which means that if their economy runs on U.S. dollars, they have to get all of their money, all of their dollars, from the United States. Only the U.S. government can print dollars. That's the point of the U.S. dollar, which means that not only will the stability of their economy hinge on our stability, which, to be fair, that's the case for the entire world, because the U.S. dollar is the international currency of business. But at the same time, it means that
like no
it would be
watching
basically
right now.
impossible in the future for any
probably
kind
'cause
of
it's
radical
Thanksgiving.
economic or currency reform to be done by the Argentinians, because, again, only the United States can print their currency.
Or maybe
They have
people
to
really
take
just
all of
want to
it
watch
from the
about
US. They
someone
essentially have
researching
to buy
about
their
the Gulf War.
ability to use their economy from us. Sounds great for the USA? Yes, it's great for us.
Education departments. Aside from economic policy, though, he's some very controversial and divisive social policies he's proposed. He wants to ban or criminalize abortion, which was only legal in 2020. But then he also wants to legalize the free trade of human organs, as well as...
That is true. He's also said that in some cases he could understand the sale of human children.
Gun laws. So he has some very interesting and polarizing propositions.
I don't know about that. I'd have to look up
That's
him saying
great,
that.
like, journalist speak right there. Very interesting, very polarizing positions, you know. People have strong opinions on his positions.
Before he takes office, that we'll hopefully see some details for these pretty vague plans at the moment. So how he's going to do that? Is he going to dollarize the economy gradually or in one hit, which would have a huge impact on the markets? Or is it going to be a last minute thing when he gets into office?
Nice. Yes, the Milei's vice president, Victoria Villarreal, I believe it's pronounced, but I'm probably wrong, seems to also be a conservative. Most of her Wikipedia page is dedicated to her sort of denying the atrocities of past right-wing dictatorships and claiming that politicians are too afraid to speak out about the crimes of left-wing terrorists who operated during the era of that regime in like the 70s. So Villarreal's 2014 book about focusing on Argentine conflicts presented methodological errors. She included 84 nomen inicio victims, so that's no name, victims dated before the foundation of the group she denounces as terrorists, victims of other groups like the Argentina Anti-Communist Alliance, and did not differentiate between civilian and military casualties. According to Villarreal, the majority of their crimes had in fact been committed during the 3 years of democracy immediately prior to the 1976 military coup. So I guess she just has like some weird, historically rooted desire to lie about the crimes of the military junta. So that's her bit, I guess. That's her shit. Can you elaborate on this guy's child trafficking policy? Sure, as soon as he does. Also, it's not trafficking if they're just selling them. It's legal. At that point, it's just child trade. Political positions of La Libertad Avanza, which is the party that has won here. Reduction in the size and scope of the Argentine state, arguing its current scale and regulatory framework are detrimental to economic efficiency and individual prosperity. La Libertad Avanza proposes a streamlined federal government structure which would include the retention or creation of the following ministries, reducing their total number to 8 from the current 19. So in a weird way, this is kind of like the Argentine Project 2025 with the destruction of the administrative state, reducing the number of departments from 19 to 8. Reducing government bureaucracy and expenditures, market-oriented approach, aiming to reduce public spending by 15% of GDP, lowering taxes with the goal of eliminating 90% of the existing ones, modernizing labor laws to encourage job creation, taking inspiration from models like that of UOCRA.
I don't know what that is. What the fuck? Oh.
This is
I know what happened.
English article.
I forgot to do this.
The Construction Workers Union
There
of
we
the
go.
Argentine Republic. Okay, that's its own rabbit hole. Advancing towards a unilateral trade policy modeled after Chile, with the goal of enhancing international competitiveness for Argentine companies, eliminating the central bank, reforming the energy sector by recalibrating subsidies and tariffs, and inviting private sector participation. It should be noted that the history of fascism in Latin America is almost entirely oriented around how business-friendly can we make ourselves to the West. Like, again, look at Pinochet. Like, that is almost always how this goes down, because Latin America was basically America's, like, dumping ground during the Cold War. Look at the last proposed ministry. The Ministry of Human Capital. I wonder what that would imply. Judicial reforms. Okay, a bunch of specific judicial reforms. Yeah, human capital. Here we go. Ministry of Human Capital. La Libertad Avanza proposes a comprehensive approach to addressing issues related to health, social
What the
development,
fuck?
labor, and education by consolidating them into a single Ministry of Human Capital. Okay, sorry guys, it's not about child sale. It's not about the child trade market. It advocates for maintaining social assistance until the country can transition to a more prosperous economic model based on freedom. Also champions the long-term transition to private systems for healthcare and education. The party identifies childhood poverty and lack of access to basic amenities as significant issues in Argentina, attributing these to long-standing policy failures. Current education system is centralized and bureaucratic, fails to meet the needs of citizens. Current public healthcare system is ineffective. La Libertad Avanza asserts that Argentina's declining security situation is primarily due to an abolitionist culture that views criminals as victims and the large size of the state, which has led to lack of control over its essential functions. The party emphasizes the role of security forces in the state is to repress criminal activity to protect citizens' life, liberty, and property. That's interesting. Why would an ostensibly anarcho-capitalist administration emphasize a sort of law and order attitude towards criminality? Wouldn't they be the very first people to advocate for a reduction in terms of the police and military state? No. Every single time. Opposed to state intervention except for the main thing the state can do to intervene, which is to arrest you or kill you. Yeah. In line with this, they propose a new security doctrine grounded in the principle of, quote, you reap what you sow.
Huh.
Wow.
I mean, he is on a Wikipedia article right now. I don't know if this is...
Defense policy, foreign relations. The new doctrine of foreign relations focused on two principles: defending liberal democracies globally, and promoting free trade between nations. The party declares Argentina will no longer be an ally to dictatorships and seeks to reestablish its position among democratic and free countries. We'll see how that goes down. He has claimed that he wants to establish strong economic ties with the United States, which he would have to if he wants to dollarize their economy. But, you know. All right. So here's my impression, okay?
Research available. I guess this is...
And I'm just kind of stabbing in the dark. But here's my impression, okay? I think that Milei is a man out of time. I think that he's 50 years too late to being America's favorite dictator in Latin America. I think that in his mind, it's
Dictator.
like 1972. And through privatization, a strong backing with the United States, in opposition to global dictatorship, and making yourself amenable to Western business interests in the form of dollarizing and privatizing the economy, you can build strong regional, control and stabilize your economy. I think the problem here ultimately is that he's actually kind of sincere. See, none of these policies, when framed together, actually make very much sense in the context of the modern world. This would make sense 50 years ago. The problem is, right now, if he wanted to do all of this and for it to work, he would not be aligning himself purely with the United States. He would be going for a broad sort of come one, come all, open to all business, approach. He wouldn't be cutting himself off to China or whatever else. It doesn't make any sense to do that. It seems like he wants to pal up to the United States, but we live in a globalized economy these days. Argentina has the ability to trade with anyone and everyone if they want to and if they develop for it. It doesn't make sense. And what's more, I do think that he has fascist tendencies, but a lot of what's written out here is not fascist. The rhetoric isn't fascist. The proposed policies aren't fascist. I think he might have drank his own, Kool-Aid a little bit here, I feel. And piss, yeah, sure. Like, I think that he's the kind of fascist that would make sense 50 years ago, but today, a lot of the things that would have made you a fascist then don't work now. Like, for example, the reason Pinochet was able to get away with what Pinochet got away with was in large part because the United States was completely fine with death squads and fascist governments in Latin America back when Pinochet was around. Nowadays, that's not really how we conduct our business. Not to say we're, like, too good for it, but it's just not how we tend to do things these days, you know? We defended Lula da Silva's government in Brazil, Biden did. So, like, what is he doing, you know? There's a weird lack of, like, hyper-nationalist, ethnic, or religious galvanizing in the official policies proposed. I know that he personally is quote-unquote anti-woke, but if he's anti-woke, why would he also say that he wants to, like, align himself with the United States politically and economically to the detriment of, like, global dictatorships? And furthermore, like, where is the hyper-nationalist pseudo-isolationism? Fascist governments almost always do this thing where they're like, we need to consolidate, we need to, like, focus on ourselves, we need to close our borders, we need to work on...
So maybe he's not fascist.
We need to do that. Because generally speaking, fascist governments kind of rely on the polarization of the us and the them. You know, they need to have an in-group and an out-group. But he's not doing that. He wants to dollarize the economy and open them up to trade. Again, this is the
so
kind
maybe
of
he's not
fascism
fascist
that I
then.
expected to see, like 50 years ago. Like, you know, it's weird.
You dumb fuck. You're like, oh,
Now,
usually fascist
obviously,
governments do
like,
this, but he's
there will
not
always
doing
be a
this.
difference between
It's like,
regular
okay,
and
well,
the
maybe he's
activities
not
that
fucking
do it,
fascist then, you dumb
like,
fuck.
I'm not saying that
Okay.
he's perfectly honest in all of that. I feel like he is a man out of time. I feel like his model for building Argentina and sort of, you know, engaging in far-right, you know, like justification for his political policies, I think it's I think it's outdated. I don't think this is going to work. There's basically two ways this can go. Either this completely crashes and burns, which is a very real possibility, or things end up going weirdly okay. Like, basically, Argentina just has a weird period of, like, austerity politics where public spending is cut, and there's an economic reform that doesn't work that well, but also doesn't have that much of an outcome. See, one thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that this guy may have won the presidency, but he did not win the legislature. As I understand it, hold on. Yeah, he only has 35 seats in the Chamber of Deputies, and only 7 in the Senate. See, he doesn't even have close to a majority. So he won the presidency because people were so disappointed in his opposition. But in terms of the legislature, like, he's going to have to bargain with them, and it makes me wonder: is it possible that a lot of the crazier stuff that he wants to do is just going to get shot down by the legislature, and as a consequence, the only thing he ends up doing is imposing a kind of moderate period of austerity, where there's this really weird dissonance between him going on TV and saying some absolutely crazy shit, and then nothing happens, and 3 months later there's some, like, weird spending reform bill that maybe makes things a little bit worse, but doesn't, like, have a huge outcome? I wonder. He will have to be very worried in terms of getting impeached because Congress will impeach him if he does stupid shit. Yeah. I don't know. It really does feel like it's a coin flip between this guy doing, like, basically nothing, like mildly worsening things, and him nuking the entire country, basically. I don't know. It's very odd. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm doing a very bad job explaining it right now.
No, no one understands what
but
the
does
fuck you're
everyone
saying.
Understand what I'm saying when I say that he's like a fascist out of time? If you go and look up, like, Pinochet or whatever, or like any of the era of Latin American far-right dictators who America put there to, like,
Should I
stop
gamble?
the spread
Come
of-
on, come on, come on.
Like, if you look at the history of
Damn
those
it!
leaders,
Fuck!
there was a very specific doctrine that they had with regards to their approach to fascism, because their fascism was completely dependent on them sucking up to America. You know? But that's not how it works anymore. Fascist governments globally these days don't tend to like America because America is no longer committed to propping up fascist regimes in order to oppose the spread of, like, communism, you know? Not to say, again, that we're above doing that. It's just not the main thing we're focused on right now. So fascist regimes tend to oppose America because we're generally considered to be an international beacon of democracy and progressivism, which, relative to a lot of countries, we are, for sure. So why suck up to us? Maybe he really is just going to do like the neoliberal thing. Maybe he really is just going to do
neoliberal
like
thing. What?
Reagan or Thatcher for Argentina. You know, no death squads, no crazy nuking the economy or whatever. Just a period of austerity and consolidation that isn't good, but isn't as destructive as it could have been. A couple of fun facts. La Libertad Avanza's logo is literally based off the Nazi eagle. Also, Milei's Instagram page follows exactly 1488 accounts. Oh, I'm not denying that he personally is like a racist or a fascist, whatever else. Okay, he's literally like a far-right ANCAP white boy in Argentina. Like, you know, this is... yeah. Nice meme. I'm not denying this in any way, shape, or form, okay? I'm only talking about, like, the way he's presenting his political slant. And yes, we've all seen Captain ANCAP, hero of the free market. This rules, okay? This to me is even better than, like, before Fetterman milkshake ducked. Fetterman wearing shorts and a hoodie everywhere. This is good, okay? I want more politicians to do this. The reason you see a lack of ethnic or religious galvanizing is because his galvanizing relies on focusing against the corrupt and ineffective political ruling class. He doesn't need to do that much racism. He does have some racist-ish policies, though, like denying foreigners free healthcare and education, which is a big point here in our...
That's not racist.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. As long as he's primarily aligned against corruption rather than degeneracy or foreign influence, he can never reach fascism level 2. Focusing on corruption is a pretty a common like opener for a lot of fascist regimes, but it's usually only a
focusing on corruption and the government is a fascist ideology.
The Nazis did this.
Yeah, that
where
makes sense.
They would complain about corruption in the Weimar government and like anti-nationalism in the Weimar government, that kind of stuff. But they only really did that because it allowed them to get to point number 2, which was the reason they're doing that is because blah blah Jews, right? So it was done for the sake of something else. Whereas in his case, unless he starts doing the thing where he's like, yeah, my opponent's corruption is actually because he's from this ethnic group or whatever, you know, we should like be suspicious of those guys. It's not really like, I feel like I'm doing a bad job explaining. I'm sleep deprived like a motherfucker right now. Still, this is important to understand, I feel. He and his party will do what you're describing. The thing is, they will not base that hatred and repression on ethnicity or religion/nationality, but ideology. If that's the case, then it can't get that bad. It can get very bad, but it could get potentially so much worse. This guy has the potential to do a lot of damage, but as long as his... look, it's all about material conditions, okay? It's all about material conditions. The forces that he galvanizes people over, the systems that he antagonizes people over, as long as he's ideologically committed to the kind of pro-business privatization that would have dictated the economic policy of some 1970s era Latin American right-wing government, he can never mobilize the kind of militant, fascist, anti-communist, behavior that his predecessors did, because we no longer exist in that era. To put it another way, Pinochet could throw communists out of helicopters while relying on American support. This guy is so reliant on American support that he wants to dollarize.
This is not a good
economy.
plan.
Do you think the Biden administration would be happy to get along with him if he was like throwing political dissidents out of helicopters? It's possible that he's praying for a Trump victory. In fact, he probably is, because if Trump won, it's possible he could get away with a lot more and simultaneously be fascist and also dollarize their economy and rely on like American foreign investment. That is possible. However, I still think that even a Trump regime would be less willing to go along with his shenanigans than America used to be with Pinochet. And the reason for that is because Trump is at least nominally isolationist. See, America backed a lot of fascist regimes during the Cold War, but America itself was not fascist. We were just willing to, you know, be buddies with like every fascist government in the world if it meant fighting communism. So as a consequence of that, we had a very internationalist perspective when it came to fighting communism. Whereas nowadays, Trump's government is like, or not Trump's government, Trump's party, Trump's power base, constantly jerks itself off about how, it's America first, it's detached from world government affairs, why is this our business, how is this our business? They're not sincerely isolationist, but it just doesn't represent the same kind of support. I think you're forgetting about Israel. I think that Israel is a very specific exception. We're using Israel as a wedge against Iran. No such situation exists in Latin America. What you're not getting is that it's not necessarily about sucking up to America. It's about destroying everything related to the Argentine state. Yeah, but that's kind of weird for a fascist to do. Fascists usually do the opposite. They might take foreign money, but they usually rely on this overemphasization, this dialectic between modernism and historical traditionalism to build some kind of monstrous Frankenstein state, where you have a technocratic surveillance state, but you also have roadside restaurants where characters from regional fairy tales are painted on the walls while you get served coffee or something. There's a contradiction present here, but this isn't contradictory. This is just pro-business policy. I don't know. If people watching this right now can take anything from my rambling, the thing that you need to take from it is that this is a very odd election, and I think that Milei's proposed policies are extremely internally contradictory in a way that is going to be interesting to watch. No, we'll see.
How?
We'll see. But you always say Trump is a real danger to democracy. What do you think could happen with Trump being highly anti-democratic in regards to what other countries start to accept? Oh yeah, for sure. If Trump wins, that is a win for authoritarianism the world around. What I'm saying is that Trump's mode of authoritarianism is not the kind that is super invested in promoting both business interests in and regional support of
other countries,
dictatorships or pseudo dictatorships like what Milei represents in Argentina. People with authoritarian tendencies. It's not the same kind of deal. Fascists tend to LARP about isolationism, but we weren't fascists during the Cold War. We just allied with fascism. The big difference, right? But it is different because we had an internationalist approach. Fascists can't do the internationalism bit. At least they can't do it without a bunch of jumping through hoops. Like Russia, for example, hardcore leans in on the ultranationalist stuff and the Dugan-esque isolationist tendency of forming the greater Russia, the pan-Eurasian Russia. But at the same time, the Kremlin, more in sort of international intrigue, OPSEC kind of way, funds right-wing governments the world around. Doesn't Trump love Orban? I'm sure that's different, though. Trump does love Orban. But the question is, if Orban wanted to dollarize, replace his entire economy with American-backed dollars, well, a dollar is American-backed by definition, and then
yeah, I was confused.
Move forward as a kind of purportedly free market extension of American business interests, would Trump care that much? And my honest answer to that is, I don't think he would. I think I think that Trump likes Orban because Orban is a fascist who has sort of quietly but meaningfully wrested democracy away from the Hungarian people. But I don't think that Trump cares about Orban in a I will form an undying economic bond with you kind of way. I think it's just game-recognized game, not the same relationship we had with Chile during Pinochet. That wasn't game-recognized game. That was, we will bond ourselves economically and politically to Pinochet to the extent that it allows him to prevent the spread of communism vis-a-vis helicopter death squads or whatever. It's different. It's weird. I don't know. I guess after reading all of this, my impression is that I am less afraid of this guy's leadership than I was initially. I don't think he's good. I think he's insane.
Come on.
He is fascist, but I think the mode by which he projects his fascism, I think the kind of fascism that he puts forward is not the kind that is most dangerous in this situation. Between his apparent internal ideological inconsistencies and the fact that the legislature is not on his side, I don't think that his presidency is going to be as destructive as some people fear it will be. I think that a lot of his worst impulses will be either curtailed by the legislature, or they won't pop up at all because they conflict with his desire to be like America's butt buddy. Vosh, the Saudis and Turkish have been sending money to Trump and his hotels to bribe him into foreign policy support, so Argentina can do the same. No, you're not understanding what I'm saying, okay? When other countries bribe Trump into favorably thinking of them, it is still not like the relationship that we had with Latin American dictatorships. I'm not talking about whether or not Trump would like Milei. What I'm talking about is, would a Trump-run United States, which is sort of based primarily on at least the rhetoric of isolationism, also engage with this ostensible pro-free market, pro-internationalist, pro-foreign investment, pro-democracy, Mileian Argentinian government? Like, isn't there a contradiction there? That's not how Hungary conducts itself. This style of austerity politics, of far-right galvanization, it's just out of time, it's out of date. We'll see what happens. I feel like I've done a very poor... I feel like I've done a poor job explaining this. I don't know how... No, I'm leaving it as is. I'm leaving it as is. People are gonna, like, misinterpret what I've said. People are gonna say shit like, oh, wow, you're saying this guy's not a threat. Or people are gonna say, like, you know, oh, wow, you really think that, like, America wouldn't back a right-wing leader or something? Like, they're not gonna listen to what I say, but I am. Okay, yeah. I feel like I'm kind of, like, learning on the fly here. If I had a bit more time, I think I could sort of distill this down to a more concise take. You're not doing awful, but you need to take this a little more seriously than now. Well, that's not very helpful. I am taking it seriously. It's complicated. Look, on the plus side, one thing this probably will be is very funny, because this guy is a lunatic and is definitely not ready for the responsibilities of being a leader, which means that he's going to... I feel like we're going to see a bunch of really goofy goober behavior, is what I'm looking forward to, personally. I want to see Vosh have a stroke trying to understand Peronism. Justicialism, a labor and left-wing leaning Argentine political movement based on that. What is the relevance of this? Yes, please? Whoa, hold on. No, this is tough enough, okay? The people he's running against. Peronism is the core of our politics. Can I engage with one complicated political subject?
I don't know what the fuck Peronism is.
This seems like genuinely like quite complicated, okay? Let's do this a little bit in the future, okay? It's mandatory to understand Argentinian politics. I don't claim to understand Argentinian politics. I don't. I'm only trying to I'm trying to figure out, I guess, the threat level of Milei's government. And I have come across, after all of this, with a fairly positive and optimistic impression for a variety of reasons. Shouldn't a popular political influencer like Vosh already know and understand stuff like Peronism? Damn, dude. Man, in order to be a political streamer, you need, like, a stronger pre-existing knowledge base than any profession in the world, dude. Holy shit. There's always someone, you know? Oh my god. Listen, alright, I'm an American. The fact that I even know how to spell Argentina when I type it into Google to look up wiki articles and how your government works is a gracious a gift to you, alright? We'll do more research into it in the future. One more summary. One more summary. You hear that?
What's going on with the political divide in America? Find out in the ebook Dueling Popular.
Final summary. Milei was elected primarily not because people are super jazzed about him, but rather because people are disappointed in the corruption and ineptitude of his primary opposition. 1.
Yeah.
2. Milei may have won the presidency, but the legislature is still very much controlled by the opposition. He doesn't even have close to a majority in the legislature. As a consequence of that, he not only has to fear impeachment, he also has to fear, you know, nothing actually getting through the legislature, which is a pretty big deal if you're a president. Okay, that's 2. 3, Milei is authentically a lunatic, which means that he is unpredictable and generally unable to assess the situation at hand. He does not seem to be playing a lunatic as a bit. He genuinely seems to be kind of crazy. So that's something. 4, the style of right-wing governance that he seems to want to pursue, both in rhetoric and in the policies that he seems jazzed about, are very, very, very ideologically libertarian. The problem with that is that libertarianism is fake. It's not real. It's a fake ideology. It can't actually happen. At most, what he could put forward is heavy privatization, austerity, and the deconstruction of the administrative state, which is, you know, not nothing, but a lot of the more radical, ideologically motivated anarcho-capitalist propositions he has don't seem to be, for one, they're not likely to pass through the legislature, but at the same time, like, I don't even know if they could be implemented. Like, we're gonna run up, it's like the contradiction between, like, an impossible ideology and reality here, you know what I mean? It's difficult enough for even mildly radical politicians to get some of their stuff through. So the idea of him getting the more radical stuff through just doesn't seem likely, okay? Number 5, very important to understand. Milei might absolutely himself be right-wing, but the style of right-wing that he is kind of weird and out of date. He seems to favor international investment, allying with international democracies, and he wants to dollarize the economy, making his entire economy completely tied to the US dollar, which means that he would be ceding a lot of Argentina's economic autonomy to the United States, which is an interesting decision motivated primarily by a very high rate of inflation. You know, I don't think it's a good idea in the long term, but maybe it could sort of cut off, you know, the inflation in the short term. We're certainly not experiencing as much inflation as they are right now. So, you know, I don't agree with the decision. But what's interesting is that fascism, certainly today, more than ever before, it relies very, very heavily on things like isolationism, hyper-nationalism. It relies on, like, the galvanization on certain ethnic, religious, or you know, like, national lines. And he doesn't seem to be pushing those things. They're present. His movement isn't devoid of racism. There are certainly racists in his coalition. He himself is almost certainly a racist. But as long as his presidency and his rhetoric are aligned mostly towards economic privatization and corruption, he can't really mobilize the kind of fervor that usually leads fascist movements to get really, really, really out of control. Does that make any sense? The most radical far-right governments almost always galvanize over
Yeah, didn't your mom say that he was going to drive himself too?
No,
is it too?
The way he's projecting himself indicates those are what he's interested in. I think this is mostly like an economic and corruption thing. Now, historically, a lot of bad things have been done in line with the economic interests of far-right governments. You know, in Latin America, Pinochet death squads.
We don't want to go either.
However, I don't think that those tendencies are as likely when he is trying to suck up to America, both for foreign investment and, like, the dollarization of the economy. Even if Trump wins, the style of far-right governance he's proposing just doesn't seem to work well with the worst tendencies of what we see today in modern fascism. Personally, I think that his presidency is going to be a mess where he's not going to accomplish very much. I think it's going to be kind of funny. Like, he's going to do funny things. Like, it's going to be goofy. You know, there's going to be some goofy goober behavior, which I respect.
Which I respect.
A little bit. You know, I like a little goofster behavior. I hope he wears that anarcho-capitalist, like, ANCAP man suit to some of his presidential addresses. It's possible that his rhetoric shifts in the future and he kind of backs off the economic stuff and starts consolidating and nationalizing and galvanizing along ethnic lines. And if he does that, things could change. But again, I don't know if that's how things are going to go. I don't think that he has a broad enough base of support under all cases, and I don't think the fervor is there. You know, rhetoric might change, but the people who supported him, mostly because they were disappointed with the opposition, are probably not going to shift from, like, oh, we want an end to corruption, to, oh, we want the ousting of this particular ethnic group, without some kind of really, really powerful motivator. And is that present here? Not without some kind of shift or like change in
I know.
She did.
So I don't think he's going to be able to do that much. I do think he's probably going to fuck up the economy some more, but, you know, it's Argentina. The economy is
No, I thought it was funny.
Like, very, very well used flashlight. All right.
When I ran away screaming.
Okay, it needed. Yeah. So
That was funny.
To my Argentinian followers who have been desperately emailing me in tears, asking me for hope, it's not great. However, I don't think it's going to be as bad as a lot of you seem to think it's going to be, and I think that it could also potentially be kind of funny. It's also possible that his failures end up sort of mobilizing and strengthening the left in your country, which, if that ends up being the case, would be pretty great, I think, because I think left-leaning things are good. So that might be nice, you know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
wild accusations that were made about me is that I killed 800 children. I was medically experimenting on children compared to Adolf Hitler, soon to
What the fuck?
KKK. It's kind of like where to begin, you know?
Why are you doing that?
What is feeling called by God? What is that like? Baby John! I just started to see malnutrition everywhere. So many children came seeking help. We decided to make a malnutrition rehab center.
She would do things as if she was a medical personnel.
She was not qualified to do this.
They were not licensed as a medical center.
DIY? Is that what you call it?
This was over my head as a nurse.
On
Bro, this
September
shit's so
27,
fucking stupid.
2023, HBO released a documentary entitled Savior Complex about the life of a white woman, her race is important here, named Renee Bach, who at 19 years old founded a mission in Uganda that turned into a hospital where she acted as a medical professional with no license and ended up unaliving up to 100 Ugandan children.
So we went to the U.S. Embassy. Charges that he brought against Renee.
I mean, they probably were gonna die anyways,
We
so...
need to talk about the white savior complex.
I do believe we saved lives, hundreds and hundreds of them.
Like, oh.
Renee is being put up as an angel.
People back in America think she's awesome. They're giving her money.
Angels like Renee bring death on the continent.
Let he who has never seen be the first to pick a stone and throw at Renee.
So much of the white savior complex is the legacy of colonialism. I feel like I've taken the hit for every single white person in Uganda. Justice means so many things to so many people.
Yo, it is you! Yo, it is!
I did not kill children. Do you think Renee is a murderer? I would not. Oh God, that's a good question.
How is that a good question? Did she murder anyone? No. So no, she's not a murderer.
Outrage ensued.
White missionaries who come to Africa to help always do a lot of damage for a very long time before Africans around them can start complaining. And that is because religion and white is the perfect combination for mentally colonized Africans to let their guard down. In Kenya, a few years ago, a white missionary couple opened a children's home in Bomet, and they raped and physically abused a lot of children before locals started complaining and before action was taken. In 2014 in Haiti, missionaries raped a lot of boys. And when locals started seeing them as threats, and that was after a long time, they were taken back to US to live their normal life. And these people are always supported by NGOs and churches. Do you know what mental colonization is? The fact that the most violent race in history were able to convince us that they're not a threat. If all these white people who come to Africa as missionaries were black, they wouldn't have been able to get away with half of what they get away with, because we Africans would have realized they're a threat a long time ago. Because as black people, we're conditioned to see each other as threats, but to see white people as this innocent, pure, fragile human being. And don't get me started on the fact that poverty is a driving white people business in Africa.
Just a few days before this film was released, a news story dropped about a white male missionary to Liberia who got a Liberian girl pregnant. He was already married to a woman in America, by the way. Then he tried to unalive this pregnant girl in Liberia, but fortunately got caught and arrested.
Look who got arrested. Lucas Richard. For the ones who don't know, he was a Christian missionary who went to Liberia and attempted to kill this woman. And here's the official statement of the Republic of Liberia. But I want to make a couple points. Because if this was a black man in Africa who killed a white man in Africa, or a black man in Africa who killed a white woman in Africa, it would be all over the news. But I had to go viral just to get this woman's story heard. To where the church apologized.
That guy sounded like sounds like he's black. Why does he sound black? Is he trying to sound black?
What does that tell you? That white privilege is real, and that black women are the most disrespected human beings on the.
That story broke on September 19, 2023. There was more outrage online.
You have already matched line. As a so-called Christian man who came to do the Lord's work, you have already matched line, coming down here as a married man and deciding to mess around with another woman. You've matched line already for that. Now, you've done what you did, and then you got this woman pregnant. First, you made her miscarry. Like, that wasn't enough. Now you're trying to take her life. And then you see the statement that the church released. Like, anybody is shocked with that statement. Nobody is shocked with that statement because they always cover their people rights, protect them. They could do the most heinous of things, but these people will still get protected, celebrated. They will still build statues for these people, create holidays for these people, still find a way to make them into victims, like we saw how they made this one or attempted to make him a victim. Always still find a way to skew the rhetoric and make it into something that it wasn't. Pretend like they don't know what the hell is going on when they know damn well exactly what's happening here. They know damn well what has been happening. We have too much evidence, plethora of evidence out there that shows that we should not be allowing these people into our countries.
Less than 2 months after all this happened, while these stories are still fresh in people's minds, Mr. Beast drops a video saying
oh my goodness.
He's helping people in Africa.
This is the first of 100 wells.
This woman seems like a cunt.
You just witnessed a small village in Kenya get access to unlimited clean drinking water in less than a second. One down, 99 more wells in Africa to go. You're gonna love this video.
Granted, he did predict that there would be backlash. In a tweet, he said, "I already know I'm going to get canceled because I uploaded a video helping people. And to be 100% clear, I don't care." He is a mega successful YouTuber, so I'm sure he and his team are extremely sensitive to how things look to the audience. So all of this backlash must come as no surprise to him. And to be fair, it isn't all backlash. Lots of people, black, white, African, have come to Mr. Beast's defense.
From what I've seen, I've never seen this man try to be charitable in a way that isn't thinking about the long-term effects of it, right? He doesn't seem like he just wants to hand people a bunch of crackheads a bunch of money and be like, well, we donated. No.
Let's see where that goes.
Most of the stuff he does, it seems like he follows through on it and he really tries to make sure that they last for a long time. So for that reason alone, I have to show him some respect because I know what it's like to live in those communities. I know what it's like to see those communities. I know what it's like to walk through those places on a regular basis. It ain't pretty. So I could never, in my heart of hearts, fault him for that because I know all those people are just so happy.
See, I don't know Mr. Beast. I have never met him. You know, he may never see my video. But I'm giving him a hug electronically. Mr. Beast, move closer. I'm giving you a hug. Take it. Take it. Take it. Thank you. Thank you so much. You have done well. You not do well. God bless you.
But I don't like where you say he gets all the attention. That I don't like. He's getting the attention because he's the one paying for it. It's not like he came there just to get attention, so people would give him money. You're trying to beg for money. You're trying to get money. It's his money. He's getting the attention because he's spending his money. Sarah Kaba-Jones, is it your money that Face Africa is spending? No. You're trying to
Stupid.
And nobody's giving you attention because nobody cares about Africa. We're aware of that. The point about this guy.
This guy is dumb, bro. Why did he do that? Why would you do this?
So please don't bring all of that. He's getting all the attention talk because yes, he should get all the attention. He should.
However, Mr. Beast did get his share of attacks for his acts of kindness. It is no secret the history between white or European people and black and brown people in the world. So
I would have went this way or this way and then came down and then moved that right there.
Is an easy target for content creators and people in the media who want to prey on people's imaginations for clicks and views. So my challenge today in making this video was to find something new to say. A lot of people were saying the same things in their videos on this topic. Yes, Mr. Beast is a white savior. No, Mr. Beast is a good person. Don't blame Mr. Beast. Blame the institutions that failed the people, aka African governments. These people are getting help. Why does it matter who did it? I can really only add two things to this conversation. The first off, the only reason I think we are talking about the white savior with regards to Mr. Beast right now is because it's of its proximity to the other two events I began this video essay discussing. I feel like it's one of the core human cognitive biases called recency bias, but I might be wrong. Secondly, if you want to know if someone is a white savior, compare them to the people from whom the term was coined. Ask yourself these three questions about Mr. Beast. Number one, does Mr. Beast come across as identifying himself as better than the black or brown people that he is helping? Number two, does Mr. Beast feel justified or entitled to do wicked acts towards the black or brown people that he's claiming to help? And number three, does Mr. Beast feel the need to proselytize or convert the natives out of what appears from his cultural perspective to be backwards lifestyles? The only thing I can say is that Mr. Beast did feel that the government should be using the people's taxes to provide water for them, and that would have solved the problem so he wouldn't have to be the one building these wells. But you be the judge. Is he a white savior based on these criteria? There are many reasons why we have a deep emotional response to the concept of white savior. One big reason, for me at least, is that I recognize that a lot happens every day in our world that fosters distrust between us as black and brown people. Some of these things are actually rumored to be acts of sabotage done by the dominant culture. For instance, the constant portrayal of black people in a negative light on the news or in works of fiction.
Whether you realize it or not, many of the examples of representation we've seen of black people throughout Western history have been negative or based in stereotypes. And
there is a long history of propaganda created that paints black people in a negative light, leading even us to come to conclusions about ourselves, seeing ourselves as inferior, stupid, lazy, deceitful, unworthy, etc.
Which doll is the black doll? And which one is the white doll?
That
Which doll is the pretty doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? And which doll is the bad doll? And why is that doll pretty?
Because he's white and he has 2 eyes.
Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
That's
which doll
fucked
looks
up.
most like you?
Like me.
Yeah, which one looks like you?
And that one.
Okay.
That doll.
Examples of this are pervasive, as even here on YouTube, you can hear some rhetoric from blacks insulting other blacks in extremely dehumanizing ways. However, there are people, black people, Africans, who are doing good works on the continent. And now I want to take the time to highlight one of them. You saw him on my thumbnail, and I posted on Twitter yesterday. Why isn't there a media frenzy around him? So I'm going to do my small part on my small channel to elevate Wode Maya and the work he has done on the continent as one African man who eventually grew a team and 1 million subscriber YouTube channel. Wode Maya has done so much good in Africa, from sending your young people to school.
Last year, December, I filmed a video about an African-American woman who moved to Kumasi here in Ghana to help less privileged kids, put them in school. And when she told me that, it really touched me.
So a lot of them weren't going to school because their parents didn't have money to buy a uniform or didn't have money to send them transportation or something. They were embarrassed because their uniforms were dirty, whatever. And so that's what we support.
And after hearing this story, I decided to be part of the change. So I asked my subscribers, can we all do something? You know, I really want to be transparent. I really want people to know that I just don't talk, but I walk my talk, right? So yeah, I promised to take care of 10 kids. But in total, I requested for 100. So I am taking 10, and I want my beloved subscribers to take what? 90.
To buying sewing machines for young girls to learn a trade.
On behalf of the Fashion Center and all the students, and on my own behalf, I want to say thank you very much to you and the 2 other people who sent their money to me so that we buy the 2 machines. In addition to the 5 that we bought for us, making 7. We are so grateful. We say thank you very much. These things will help us to train more girls to acquire fashion and designing and become their fashion designers. We thank you very much.
To building houses for the homeless.
Where do you live now?
I live in Montopia.
In the neighbors. You don't have a place to stay now?
Sorry?
You don't have a place to stay your own? Tyro, I think we can build a house for you. Yeah?
Okay, but maybe it's when I work in when I officer and when I officer ukobeka wakela akwakele mhlabe bangithelele imali when down.
I am suffering so bad.
Doesn't want to rebuild the house.
No, we can't. We won't rebuild this one from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere else.
Okay. So we're gonna do this. I think wait a minute. Hey, you can go ahead, man. Let's just take over.
And so much more. I encourage you to check out his YouTube channel. He not only does that, but he highlights parts of Africa that you normally don't see. Both deep village, rural areas.
That's a woman's hand, man.
Yes. Fuck.
So good, man. Yeah.
And megacities.
4 years ago, Baby Maya was in the street of Kampala. Just to tell you guys that Kampala is one of the most busiest cities in the whole of Africa. And 4 years later, I came back. Is it the same thing to me or not? Because I feel like there's so many entrepreneurs in this country. If I want to do video in this country, probably I might not finish even in 100 years. Because everywhere I go, I see ordinary Ugandans doing business, and the business are flourishing.
And he's not the only one doing this on social media.
This is Zimbabwe.
Guys, I'm working with a cheetah. The tongue is so sharp.
One of Africa's most beautiful countries, and over the next 7 days, I will be exploring it.
This is the first time I'm seeing a rainbow. Africa is so beautiful.
I found a homeless woman and her children sleeping on the roadside in Abuja in the middle of the night, and it was raining. I rented an apartment for this woman, paid for 2 days, furnished it, gave her 233,000 to set up the business, but this woman ran away. She sent us an SMS that she had relocated and handed over the keys to neighbors. So we decided that we needed to give the apartment to someone else, and my PA finally got someone to occupy it. And I'm here to meet the person.
Igbo people ekene mgbe ndị ọma njem ọnụ asịkwa m nke onye chi ya zere ebe nnọkọ atabụ n'ala na nke ndị dị ibekwe n'ụmụokwu ala onye ọchịchị na ebe a bụ nwa amadi afịa bụ Chijioke Ibekwe. Chijioke gbajiri ụkwụ since 2018 o si n'elu na wee gbajie spinal cord, mana ebe mụ na ya na-abụ miti bụ na ama teaching hospital Emegwu Ojukwu nke dị n'Ọka. So mụ ya na-abụ miti na 2019 December 2019 2021 I be taking care of him. So ọ dị ka takwa general novel, I give them 1,250,000 mana ọbụrụ ihe niile ka e post na Facebook. So the thing they have na mpi ya hụrụ ya bụ dia so mommy ya so ọfịa ya arụ.
So Mr. Beast did a good thing. If he did it for the right reasons, he shouldn't need me to tell him that. However, these Black and African philanthropists also are trying to do a good deed and need our support as well. I hope we can change the narrative that Africans don't help themselves, because we do. We always have, and we always will. I myself have a nonprofit focused on creating educational content in Igbo language, because research has shown that children learn best in their mother tongue. Due to old vestiges of our ugly history, and despite study after study showing that children learn best in the language they speak at home, most education in Africa still uses colonial language and systems. So I enlisted the help of expert teachers, animators, voice actors, translators, and editors to create math and science lectures in Igbo language, as well as putting well-known ancient classic Igbo folktales into animation. People's responses were very revealing. One person said, "See me vibing instead of learning."
At Amazon Freight, we know the only thing better than having a friend with a truck is having a friend with a bigger truck. And an on-demand freight network with a set of tools anyone can use. So you can choose when you want to book.
If you want the performance of stainless steel, the versatility of cast iron, and the convenience of non-stick, then you want Hexclad. That is stunning. You will not get a better sear anywhere. Now, Hexclad cookware is designed to heat up fast and evenly. So when you cook on medium, it's almost like you're using high heat. For everyday dishes like this beautiful chicken breast, medium or medium-low is where you should do most of your cooking.
Trust me, you buy it once, but cook with it for a lifetime.
People. It has been. Do you think that would be allowed? That's exactly what it has been. Would you advocate for that? Would you support that? Have you seen the state of Mariupol, which they leveled to the ground? The Ukrainians did level. The Russians. No, the Russians. 2014. The Russians leveled Mariupol. And my question to you is, would you advocate those reactions? Let me ask you another question. This is a genuine question. Let me ask you a question. I want to understand your point. It's actually my interview with you. Yeah, but you tried to understand mine. I just want to understand your point of view. If I believe, or the Israeli, that one of the people in your house is a terrorist and decided to destroy your entire house and kill your entire family, would you sit and say, well, maybe there was a terrorist inside, I accept that? Or would you be enraged?
genuine question.
I don't think you can take an individual person's response.
Well, it's a bunch of individual people in Gaza.
Yeah,
They're
sure.
people, individuals with
All right,
thoughts and
let's come-
dreams and aspirations
Fine.
which are being annihilated. 15-year-old girls without legs to the cruise missiles.
Let's come to
they
that.
are individual people. They're not cattle.
Let's
Piers.
come to
They're
that.
people.
Right, and so were the people in Israel on October the 7th.
And that's why it's so heinous, which is my exact point.
But not heinous enough to reach your bar of terrorism.
It's not about reaching bar of terrorism.
No,
It's understanding why things happen.
By not saying it, you've made your position clear. Just as Jeremy Corbyn did. And to pretend
Damn
to be
it.
different is ridiculous. Let's move on to Israel's response. Because there are legitimate questions about this. Hamas embeds itself, 40,000 terrorists in my estimation, you can call them whatever you like. And they're embedded amongst the civilian population, predominantly in northern Gaza. We know from intelligence over the last 20 years, which you won't believe because the Matrix has made it all up, right? We know from intelligence that historically Hamas likes to embed itself, particularly around things like schools and hospitals and mosques, because that makes it more difficult if the Israelis attack them. Now, Israel has killed nearly 12,000 people in its response, right? There are many people around the world demanding a ceasefire who think that is ridiculously disproportionate response to what happened. Well, it was genocide. They would want to kill everyone in Palestine. They don't.
They just want to drive them all out.
Whereas Hamas do want to kill every Jew. That is actually what genocide is.
You know what's actually interesting? You've spoken about this subject more, who actually understand the conflict better than I do. Mohammed Hijab understands it better, Loki understands it better. I'm talking from a very general humanistic perspective, because I don't understand the absolute intricacies like they do.
Do you know what genocide means?
Of course I do.
Right. Genocide means you want to eradicate an entire people based on race or ethnicity. Israel clearly doesn't want to do that to the Palestinian people.
Clearly not.
If it did, it wouldn't tell a million of them, as it turned out, who moved south. Now, there are arguments about
To attack them as they move.
Well, some people got hit as they moved.
Oh, some people got hit.
Yes.
Some people got hit.
You know what,
You know
Andrew?
what happens?
You know what, Andrew?
Wait till it's your son.
You know what?
Wait till it's your
I
son.
agree. And you know what, Andrew? War is horrific. It's horrific. The question is it a just war for Israel to go after Hamas? And if it is, and you believe as I do, Hamas has to be got rid of, how do you do that? If you don't do it the way Israel is doing it, how do you get rid of that terror group? Now, you won't agree with anything they're doing because you can't even categorize them as a terror group.
No, the reason I won't agree with you is because I'm a human. Please let me answer this without being interrupted. You didn't answer my earlier question that you couldn't answer without which was my point. The question about the fact that they decided to cruise missile your house because they thought somebody inside was a terrorist. You would not accept the loss of your family that you raised. You would not accept that. Okay, absolutely. So let me answer this as a professional. What's funny is I'm a humanist. Like I said,
professional what? By the way?
I'm professional. Please let me answer. Let me answer.
What are you? What are you
I'm
thinking?
a
You say you're thinking of
professional, and
professional.
I'm talking about this from a humanistic perspective, right? And like I said, you talk to people more knowledgeable than me on the details of the subject.
Right.
Listen to me very carefully. I thought we lived in a democratic society. You just said 35,000 Hamas terrorists, and this is the thing that's most upsetting. This is what genuinely upsetting. Israel intelligence will say a guy's Hamas terrorist. Has that guy gone to a court of law? Has there been a democratic process? Has he been proven to be a terrorist? No. They've just decided from their intelligence that couldn't see an invasion coming from hundreds of miles away. So this intelligence is
Actually, no.
It's not great.
No.
So they decided this person might be an intelligence without court case, without any kind of democratic process, and because of that, they've decided to annihilate civilians along with him, and it's all just collateral damage, and nobody should care. That is not a humanistic perspective, and that is disgusting. And any person in the West who is advocating for that is a hypocrite. Because if it was turned on them, if the American government said, "We think the person in your shopping mall, one of the people you were shopping alongside in the mall, might have committed a crime. We didn't take them to court. We think they might have, so we killed your whole family. Get over it."
So the last time
is a clown and a hypocrite.
So the last time.
What do you expect full-grown men to do?
I'm about to respond.
What do you expect full-grown men to do when you kill all of their families and leave them locked in an open air
Let me
prison?
respond. The last time that Jewish people faced
What?
was in World War II.
All right, give me.
And the Nazis
Oh, this should be fast.
wanted to take over the
You
world.
say that all the
get every
time,
Jew
and it'll be
person.
like 45
The Nazis
minutes.
were ultimately defeated by Winston Churchill leading the Allies.
You know, I don't have
And
to
Winston
make you
Churchill,
go, but I have to
the
make
process
you
of
go.
defeating the Nazis.
But I would
killed
like
a lot
it
of
if you
German
came.
civilians in the process. Do you think that was justified?
Let me ask you.
Was it not? No, I asked the question. Was it justified?
The only person you're going to be up close and personal with is Gabby.
Huh?
Yeah, think about it.
And I can guarantee you.
I hope that this guy isn't able to trade.
Were they terrorists?
Yeah, they were. Right. So I believe that they.
So when you massacre Jewish people, you're terrorists. Except when you do it in Israel.
When you try and conduct genocide on a populace,
They
you
were
don't
kind of
want them on land you say is
Fuck you.
It's exactly what Hamas did on October
exactly what
7th.
Israel had did before that.
So you've literally just described what Hamas do.
You just described what Israel did.
Whatever.
They're trying to genocide the Palestinians as we speak. And this is the exact point.
So,
To see
so
it-
Israel.
No, but to see
Hang on,
it-
do you think Israel are terrorists?
I think that what they're doing now is disproportionate and genocidal.
Is it terrorism?
It's genocidal, so I guess that makes terrorism. It's
Right, so
genocidal.
they're terrorists for responding to an act of terror, but the people who committed the act of terror are not terrorists.
The way in which they're
You
responding.
see the problem in that argument?
No.
Really?
Pierce, what they are doing now.
Slaughtering 1,500 people in the way they did it is not an act of terror by terrorists, but a response from the people who are on the receiving end rather like the response of the
you say
Allies
12 did you say
in World War
12,000
II
people?
to what the Nazis did. That apparently is the only act of terrorism.
Didn't you say 12,000 people the Israelis have killed thus far?
Yes.
I saw a video of a 15-year-old girl with no legs begging to die.
Yeah.
She was begging to die, saying, "I have no future because my parents are gone and my legs are gone.
It's
I have
horrific.
no future." No, but you say that, right? You talk about numbers and statistics, and you say a few people got caught. You don't think of Gazans, and you don't think of as Muslims and Palestinians as individual people.
Oh, yes, I do.
No, you don't. Because
Oh,
if
I
you
do.
did, if
Oh,
you
I
did,
do.
if you did, you
Oh,
would
no,
not be happy with what's
don't you
happening
dare
here.
say that about me.
Well, okay, then don't
No,
put
no,
them
no.
together in numbers.
No, no,
They're not numbers.
I've
they're people.
spoken for many years about the plight of the Palestinian people. I think it's outrageous that Israel has any control over their ability to function with water, with fuel, with other energy, and so on, and
Okay,
food. And
that's
so
interesting.
It
so
is
if
wrong.
you were in Gaza as a
If the baby
Ghanaian
is-
male,
do you
of
think it's
masculine,
gonna make it worse?
fighting age, and you believe the things you currently believe,
Yeah.
what would you do about it? I'm just asking.
You know what? Nothing justifies the terrorism.
I never
of
said you'd be a
7/7.
terrorist. I'm asking what you do.
No,
you just don't
I
work.
understand
Sometimes
why
some
people in
parents are
Palestine
better
feel
off
oppressed.
not
I understand why they want freedom. I understand why they want the same rights as the people in Israel.
Then here's a perfect.
On that we agree. But
Absolutely
nothing,
agree.
nothing justifies.
Being a mom does
Well, here's where we
change
disagree.
people.
Because as a
Hopefully it
professional,
changes
we
it
both
for
agree on the
better.
point that the people inside of Gaza are being oppressed and that their life is being detrimented,
Yeah.
and that they have no way of getting out.
Yes.
We, as a professional,
And I do agree with that.
I understand pressure cookers explode. You're pretending they shouldn't. You're saying that they should never explode. Nothing bad should never happen.
nothing justifies terrorism.
We should just be allowed to subjugate them
No,
for
no.
endless years
Here's
and
my-
nothing happens.
no.
And I'm a realist to understand that pressure cookers explode.
No, you're not.
And that's what
No,
happens.
you're not.
We need a solution to the problem, or it will continue to happen.
You're not a realist because actually you are not accepting that what they did on October the 7th was an act of terrorism by terrorists. You won't accept that. You think actually they're freedom fighters doing some kind of resistance. And I say that is ridiculous and shameful. That's the difference between us.
I understand that pressure cookers explode.
Right. So you think it's perfectly reasonable what happened?
I don't think it's reasonable. I think it's a shame.
Natural consequence.
I think it's a shame.
Shame, that's it.
I think it's a shame that we're living in the world now where people are reduced to basically suicide to try and fight for freedom for their families if they have one left. Because they all committed suicide, those men.
Well, the
Because
Hamas-
they didn't have a chance of survival. I think when you
Well, that's because they believe that they're martyring themselves and going to a better
when you
life.
oppress people to the point where their family's dead and they have nothing to live for.
So
I think that's a shame.
So do you support Islamic fundamentalism?
Absolutely not.
Do you support an Islamist ideology?
Absolutely not.
Right.
What I support.
So why do you support Hamas?
I support justice in
You
the
support
universe.
Hamas?
I support justice in the universe.
Do you support Hamas?
No.
You don't?
Well, I don't know the ins and outs of Hamas's creed. I have to be very honest.
Well, you know what they did on October the 7th. Do you support them?
I understand why that happened. And I'm
Right.
saying it's a shame.
But you won't denounce them.
I say it's a shame.
Will you condemn them?
I can't sit here and condemn the obvious
Wow.
outcome of
Wow.
consequence.
Really?
How can I condemn?
You can't condemn Hamas for what they did.
Well, we know what's going to happen, and we need a solution.
You're very quick to condemn Israel's response, but you won't condemn the terror attack which prompted it.
No, I'll tell you why.
Even though Hamas knew by doing what they were doing, that would be the response.
Do you think they knew that?
Of course they knew that.
You think they knew the Israelis?
They did it quite deliberately. You know why? Because they were funded and supported by Iran. They didn't like the fact that Israel was normalizing relations with a bunch of Arab countries, from the UAE to Bahrain to Morocco, and then coming down the line was going to be Saudi Arabia. That was a threat to the Iran view of what should be happening in that region. Iran are the ones who support and fund and arm Hamas, and they clearly, in my estimation, it hasn't been properly established yet, but clearly Hamas couldn't have done this on their own. They've done it with support from Iran, and they've gone and committed an act of such heinous atrocity that they knew what the response would be, and that means that they sentenced in that moment not just 1,500 people in Israel to death in the most appalling manner possible, but they also sentenced to death thousands and thousands of innocent Palestinians, including many innocent children, because half the population are children, and Hamas knew that was what was going to happen. So my question is, how can anyone think that Hamas is a force for good
I
for
didn't
the
say
Palestinian
they're a
people?
force for good.
They are a force
I said they're
for evil.
unfortunate. No, I didn't say they're a force for good. I said it's a pressure cooker and it's a shame.
But you won't even
let
condemn
me
them.
let me ask the question. Do you think if we gave Palestinian people basic human rights, that Hamas would find it more difficult to recruit new soldiers?
The Wallbot DIY2 is the most advanced stud finder on the market, and if you're looking for Christmas gift ideas for this holiday season, you're definitely going to want to check this out. Where most stud finders are typically only able to detect studs, the Wallbot is capable of detecting much more, making it a much more useful tool in your toolbox. With technology that was originally designed for imaging devices in the medical field, the Wallbot can accurately detect and differentiate between pipe, wire, wood studs, metal studs, and it can detect pests that might be roaming around in your walls as it can see movement. With the Wallbot app, the Wallbot wirelessly connects to
Yeah, look, I think
Probably if we treat them like humans, this won't happen. So we agree and let's move on.
I think there's a real danger in the scale of Israel's response that you radicalize a whole new generation
Agreed.
of Palestinians. I think that's a real danger.
So
and
perhaps-
and by the way, I've said that. We can agree on
So
that.
perhaps it was Israel's actions before October 7th that radicalized the soldiers who did it. So you agree with this? So let's move
No, I don't. No, nothing
Just
justifies what they did. Let me ask you about the reaction that you've had from certain people who I think at one stage you had a good relationship with. One is Jordan Peterson, and the other one Ben Shapiro. Let's talk about Jordan first. You've had a bit of a to and fro with him. But what is your view of it?
I think Jordan and I actually agree on many issues. I think the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I think we have a lot more in common than we have that we disagree on. We have different views of the world on certain things. I think we approach him from different places. He's far more in his mind, whereas I'm more in a physical realm than he does. I have nothing against Jordan. I don't dislike him. I do find it, and I must be honest, a bit disingenuous and hypocritical that he speaks mental strength and then ends up addicted to an antidepressant. I don't think we should ever take antidepressants ever. I've been through worse than what he's been through, and I didn't take a single drug. However, I have nothing against the guy. He says very intelligent things, and I'd be interested to argue with him or discuss or debate with him, but I think we'd actually agree on most points, to be honest with you. I don't think I mean, he may be unhappy with somehow how I've lived my life and some things I've done, but we've already discussed the fact that I come from the lowest income area of the UK, and most people around me were selling drugs, so at least I didn't do that. So I'm not going to allow somebody who's a professor at a university who's had an easy life come along and tell me how people from the streets should survive. You have to find a way out, see a rich guy trying. But I have nothing against the guy. I just think that he's been a bit hypocritical, and then, truthfully, the only time I've been genuinely a bit appalled by any of his actions was the tweet he made on Israel-Palestine. He said, "Give them hell." I know that's an easy thing to say, and it's an expression that people use, and they throw it around flippantly. But I think when you actually wish hell upon other human beings, I think it's a disgusting thing to do, because hell is that 15-year-old girl with no legs, and her parents were dead.
Well, hell
and
is...
you see her crying her eyes out, begging to die. That is hell. And I don't think you should genuinely wish hell on anyone, Israel or Palestinians, either anyone. I'm a humanist. I don't want anybody to die.
Well,
when he was wishing hell on an entire population...
He did express regret for the way he phrased it.
And he should,
and
because it's disgusting. I've not wished hell on the Israelis. I've not wished hell on the Israeli state. I don't want any Israeli civilian to go through what that 15-year-old Palestinian girl's going through. Not a single one.
He said about you, Jordan Peterson, I'm not particularly happy to be grouped with Andrew Tate. I think there are some elements about what he does that are quite reprehensible.
I'm sure he has. I don't know everything he says, and he may disagree with some of my point of view. As I said, I have nothing against him. I don't think anything he says is particularly wrong. I think that he's hypocritical because of the antidepressant problem, and I think that the fact he wishes hell on other humans because he gets emotionally involved in a conflict, which within 2 minutes of it sparking off, he's wishing genocide. I think that says a lot about his personality. But overall, when he speaks at length, a lot of the things he says are pretty well thought through and pretty constructive. I have nothing against the guy.
Let me turn to Ben Shapiro. So let me assure you, as someone who's not pimped women and bragged about it, morality requires that those who rape women and kidnap women must be eradicated, not negotiated with. He says, on my show, I won't be lectured on morality and toughness by Andrew Tate. His great idea of toughness and morality is pimping women and bragging about it on air, and then trying to quasi-walk it back while simultaneously maintaining many of the same positions, flexing his biceps. Listen, everyone should be able to tweet whatever it is they want. I'm all for an open discourse, and people who I think are dead wrong on a lot of issues. But Andrew Tate is dead wrong on a lot of these issues, and the particularly ridiculous posturing about being yes, you're very tough when you want people to make peace with terrorists who just murdered their children. Very, very tough. What do you say to that?
So Ben is a warmonger. Ben has been wrong on basically every single issue you name. He was with you with the vaccine and every other war. Ben is always calling for other people's young men to go and die in some war. He seems to love it. It's going to be a short man syndrome, and he's always behind his desk calling about how important it is that big, strong men like me go and die. And the reason he tweeted that and said that is because when Hamas and Israel, very early in the conflict, I think it was 3 days in, were discussing possible peace talks, he tweeted, "No, absolutely not, fuck them, kill them all." And I said, Ben, as a man who's done his own fighting, I've had a life of pain and violence. Listen to me, peace is always worth a conversation. What I said is that we should always be prepared to at least discuss peace. He, because he's a warmonger, said, "No, peace is not worth a conversation. You're this, you're that, because he's always sitting behind his desk. He must have used a chair, he's always running his mouth trying to invoke violence and call for war. And I find it kind of hypocritical because a man who's so small,